I want to tell you about something that happened a few years ago, something I still can't fully explain. It's one of those memories that plays back in my mind on quiet nights, a little movie that still sends a shiver down my spine. It took place back when I was in my early 20s, renting a small, isolated cabin for a solo writing retreat. The place was miles from the nearest town, nestled deep in a thick pine forest in the Pacific Northwest. My plan was to disconnect completely, no internet, spotty cell service, just me, my laptop, and the sounds of nature. I wanted absolute solitude to finish my novel. For the first few days, it was perfect. The cabin itself was old but cozy. It had that distinct smell of aged wood and pine needles. The walls were lined with dusty books, and a large stone fireplace dominated the main room. There was only one phone, a vintage rotary model, sitting on a small wooden table in the hallway. The owner had mentioned it was mostly for decoration but could supposedly make local calls in an emergency. I never paid it much attention. The first strange thing happened on the third night. I was typing away, lost in my story, when I heard a faint scratching sound from outside, near the front door. I paused, listening. It was probably just an animal. I told myself a raccoon or a squirrel. The woods were full of them. But the sound was rhythmic, almost deliberate. I got up, my heart beating a little faster, and peeked through the curtain. The porch light cast a pale, yellow glow onto the empty wooden steps. There was nothing there, just the silent, looming trees and the sighing of the wind. I shook it off, chalking it up to an overactive imagination fueled by isolation and too much coffee. The next day, everything seemed normal. I went for a long hike, breathed in the crisp mountain air, and felt my nerves settle. But as dusk fell, that same sense of uneasy quiet returned. I was making dinner when I heard it again. This time, it wasn't scratching. It was a soft tapping, coming from the window in the kitchen. Tap, tap, tap. Slow and steady. My kitchen faced the densest part of the forest, a wall of impenetrable darkness. I froze, a wooden spoon halfway to my mouth. Who would be out there? I slowly crept to the window, my hands trembling slightly, and pulled the curtain back just a fraction of an inch. Blackness. But I felt something. I felt like I was being watched. I quickly shut all the curtains in the cabin and triple-checked the locks on the doors and windows. My rational mind was screaming that it was a branch tapping against the glass in the wind, but there was no wind that night. The air was unnervingly still. I tried to go back to my writing, but the words wouldn't come. Every creak of the old cabin made me jump. I felt a growing dread, a primal fear that I was not alone. The silence was no longer peaceful. It was heavy, suffocating, and filled with an unspoken presence. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay in bed, my ears straining for any sound. Around what must have been 2 or 3 in the morning, I heard footsteps on the wooden porch outside my bedroom window. They were slow, heavy, and deliberate. A man's footsteps. My cabin was miles from any road. No one could just wander up here by accident. I held my breath, listening as the steps paced back and forth, right outside my window. I was paralyzed with fear. I just lay there, praying they would go away. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps stopped. Silence descended again, but it offered no relief. The next morning, I was a wreck. I hadn't slept a wink. As soon as the sun was up, I forced myself to go outside. I had to know. On the dusty ground around the cabin, I found them. Footprints. Large, muddy boot prints, leading from the edge of the woods onto the porch, circling the entire cabin, and then disappearing back into the forest. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was real. Someone had been here. Someone had been watching me. I felt violated, terrified. My sanctuary had become a trap. I immediately decided I was leaving. I couldn't stay another night. I started packing my things in a frenzy, throwing clothes and books into my bag, my only thought to get in my car and drive away as fast as I could. I was just about to grab my car keys when it happened. The old rotary phone in the hallway began to ring. The sound was jarring, a shrill, piercing breathing that cut through the silent cabin like a knife. It rang once, twice, 3 times. I stared at it, completely frozen. Who could possibly be calling? The owner? A wrong number? My cell phone had no signal, and this landline was supposedly disconnected from any outside line. My hand hovered over the receiver, a war raging in my mind. "Don't answer it," a voice screamed, but a morbid curiosity, a need to understand what was happening, took over. My hand, seemingly with a will of its own, lifted the heavy black receiver to my ear. I said a shaky, "Hello." There was nothing, just a dead, hollow silence. No dial tone, no static, just nothing. "Hello," I repeated, my voice louder this time. "Is anyone there?" Still, only silence. I was about to hang up, dismissing it as a fluke, a short in the old wiring. But then, I heard it. It wasn't coming from the phone. It was coming from the other side of the cabin door. A faint, muffled voice. It was the echo of my own. "Anyone there?" It whispered back. The voice on the other side of the door was mimicking me. In that instant, I understood. The call wasn't from outside. The call was from inside the house. Or rather, the person who made the call was right outside. My blood turned to ice. They had been listening to me the entire time. They knew I was about to leave. The phone wasn't a call for help. It was a taunt. It was a way of telling me, "I'm here. I can hear you. You're not alone." I dropped the phone, letting it clatter to the floor. I didn't scream. I couldn't. All the air had been punched from my lungs. I grabbed my keys, burst out the back door, and ran. I didn't look back. I sprinted through the trees to my car, fumbled with the keys, and peeled out of there, kicking up a cloud of gravel and dust. I drove for hours without stopping, not even glancing in the rearview mirror until the sun was high in the sky and the city skyline was in view. I never went back to that cabin. I called the owner from a payphone and told him I had a family emergency and had to leave, making up a story about leaving the key under the mat. I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. What would I have said? That the cabin was haunted? That a phantom caller was stalking me from the woods? He would have thought I was crazy. To this day, I don't know who or what was out there. Was it a prankster? A drifter? Or something else entirely? All I know is that I went to the woods seeking solitude, and I found something else. I found out that sometimes, the most terrifying thing in the world is the realization that you are not, and have never been, truly alone. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever had a creepy or unexplained experience like this, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. We really appreciate your support. It means the world to us, seriously.